Picture it. You wake up tomorrow and there's no alarm because there doesn't need to be one anymore. The mortgage is gone. The portfolio throws off enough every month to cover every bill you own without you lifting a finger. Retirement isn't a plan you're working toward. It's already funded, sitting there, done. This is what people mean when they say financial freedom. You made it. You close the entire distance that people spend decades trying to close. Except that night, you're still lying in bed at 11:40, phones 6 inches from your face, doing the same thing you've done since you were 24. You open the banking app. You watch the number load. And somewhere underneath all of it, there's still that same small knot sitting in your stomach, the one you've had since before any of this existed. How is that even possible? To answer that, you have to go all the way back, past this house, past the portfolio, past every account that exists in your life right now, back to where every version of this story actually starts. $312. Payday is Friday. That's 5 days. Rent already cleared. The car insurance auto drafts on Wednesday, $164, and you already know that after it hits, you'll have $148 to get through 5 days that include gas, your sister's birthday dinner you already said yes to, and whatever the dog needs because the dog always needs something in the last week of the month. You do this math almost every night. Because you're not bad with money, because you're paying close enough attention that the math is the only thing standing between you and a decision you can't take back. This is financial freedom's opposite, and most people live here for years without a word for it. Call it stage 1. You don't pick this stage, it picks you, usually around the time you get your first real paycheck and realize the number on the offer letter and the number that actually lands in your account are not the same number at all. The median full-time salary in a mid-sized American city runs somewhere around $56,000 a year. After federal tax, state tax, and FICA, you're looking at roughly $44,000 landing in your account. Divide that by 12, and you get a little over $3,600 a month, and that's before rent, which in most cities now runs somewhere north of $1,500 for something forgettable. You are not overspending. You are exactly where the math places you. Surveys keep putting the number of Americans living this way somewhere around half, some years higher. Not because people are careless, because the gap between what things cost and what people get paid has been narrowing from the wrong side for a long time now. You know this. You've known it since the first time you did the phone in bed math and realized there was no version of the next 5 days where you weren't watching the number. You know someone in this stage right now, even if you've climbed past it yourself. Call her Dana. 26, works the front desk at a dental office, makes about $19 an hour, and has a coworker who makes a joke every payday about how she should just invest more. Dana has heard this joke a dozen times. She has also done the math on what just invest more would actually require, and the math doesn't leave room for it, not this year, maybe not next year either. Dana isn't failing at money. She's playing a version of the game where the rules were written for a paycheck that doesn't quite exist at her income level anymore. That's stage 1 for a lot of people. Not a personal failing dressed up as a financial one, just the actual literal math of what's left after rent and taxes and everything a functioning adult life requires. Stage 1 has one job. It teaches you to notice every dollar. Not because you're disciplined, because you have no cushion, and no cushion means every dollar is load-bearing. You get good at this without deciding to. You know which grocery store marks down bread on Thursdays. You know your gas tank's exact range in miles because you've watched the needle drop enough times to memorize it. Nobody teaches this. You just absorb it, the way you'd absorb a language spoken in the house you grew up in. Then something shifts. Not dramatically. You get a raise, or you cut the streaming subscriptions you forgot you had, or you just get tired of the Sunday night phone and bed math and decide to fix it. And slowly, a number starts to exist that wasn't there before. $1,000, then 2, sitting in a separate account you've told yourself not to touch. This is stage 2. Call it stability, though it doesn't feel stable yet. It feels fragile, actually, like a plant you're not sure is going to make it. You still check the account most nights, but the number you're checking isn't, "Can I survive the next 5 days?" anymore. It's, "How big is the buffer now?" The car needs new brakes, $600, and for the first time in your adult life, you pay for it and don't feel the floor drop out under you. You just watch the buffer shrink and start rebuilding it the following month. Financial planners will tell you the real threshold here is 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting somewhere liquid. Almost nobody hits that number quickly. Most people spend 2, 3, sometimes 5 years in stage 2, adding to the buffer in good months, watching it get eaten in bad ones. There's a dentist bill in year 2 you didn't see coming, $380 for a filling insurance only half covers, and you pay it out of the buffer and feel something close to grief watching the number drop back down. Then you rebuild it, slower this time because rebuilding is always slower than the first build ever was. It is slow, unglamorous work this stage. Nobody posts about their emergency fund online. There's no milestone graphic for, "I now have $4,300 instead of $1,100, but it is also the first time in your life that a financial emergency is an inconvenience instead of a catastrophe, and that difference matters more than any dollar figure attached to it. While the buffer grows, something else is usually still sitting there, quieter, uglier. The debt. The average American carries somewhere around $6,700 in credit card balances alone, and that number has been climbing for years, mostly because the emergencies that used to wipe out a checking account now get parked on a card and quietly compound at north of 20%. You have some version of this. Maybe it's the card, maybe it's the loan from the year the transmission went and there was no buffer there to catch it. Stage 3 is the stage where you finally turn and look at that number directly, instead of making the minimum payment and looking away. This is the least glamorous stage of the entire climb, and nobody throws you a party. There's no moment where the debt hits zero and confetti falls. You make an extra payment in March, another in June. You stop for 2 months because a friend's wedding ate up the extra. You start again in September. And then, one Tuesday, checking the account out of habit more than hope, you see it. $0.00 owed. You stare at it the way you'd stare at something that doesn't quite seem real yet, because you've been carrying this number for so long that its absence feels like a phantom limb. Nobody claps. Your paycheck looks the same as it did the day before, but the mental tax you've been paying every single month, the fee you didn't even register as a fee anymore because you'd been paying it for so long, is just gone. You notice it first in small ways. You buy a coffee out without doing the compounding math on it in your head. You don't flinch when a friend suggests a restaurant before checking the menu online first. That's stage 3. Debt freedom. Quiet, unglamorous, and probably the single stage most people underestimate before they get there and overvalue once they have. It doesn't feel like winning. It mostly just feels like the absence of a weight you'd stopped noticing you were carrying. Somewhere around here, the math starts doing something it's never done before. It starts doing some of the work for you. You're contributing to a 401k, maybe 8 or 10%, now that the debt payment isn't eating your paycheck. You check the balance one Sunday night, the same ritual you've kept since stage 1, except now you're not looking for a number that tells you whether you'll survive the week. You're looking at a number that's grown by more than you put into it this year. The market did that, not you. You just left it alone. This is stage 4, and it has a name most people have never heard: coast. It means you've built enough of a base that if you stopped contributing entirely today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, the compounding already in motion would still carry you to a comfortable retirement number on its own. You don't actually stop contributing. Almost nobody does once they've come this far. But something shifts psychologically the day you understand that the outcome is no longer entirely dependent on your effort. The machine is running. You're just feeding it now instead of building it from nothing. This is also, statistically, where most people quietly stop climbing. Not because they've hit a ceiling, because the anxiety that drove stage 1 is gone, the debt from stage 3 is gone, and the buffer from stage 2 feels like enough. Life gets comfortable here. There's nothing wrong with stopping here. Most people never even see this stage, let alone stop here voluntarily. But some people keep going. And this is where it gets strange. You've heard of the number before you actually hit it. 25 times your annual expenses invested, generating enough in returns alone to cover your life without a paycheck ever landing again.
You did the math on this years ago as an abstraction, the way you do math on a lottery jackpot. Interesting, but not real. And then, one ordinary Tuesday, coffee in hand, no plans, nothing urgent, you check the number out of habit, and it's there. Not close to there. There. This is stage 5, financial independence. This is the morning we opened with, the one where the mortgage is gone and the portfolio pays every bill, and there's no alarm because there doesn't need to be one. Except you're not imagining it from the outside anymore, you're standing inside it. And here's the part nobody puts in the headline. It doesn't feel the way you spent 15 years imagining it would feel. You expect relief, pure, uncomplicated relief, the kind where the tension you've been carrying since that first Sunday night with the phone 6 inches from your face just dissolves. What actually happens is stranger. The tension doesn't dissolve, it relocates. You lie in bed that same night, the number confirmed, and you find yourself doing math again, except the math has changed shape entirely. It's not, can I survive? It's, who am I if survival was never actually the question? You go to work the next Monday anyway, not because you have to, because you genuinely don't know what a Tuesday looks like without the engine running, and the idea of finding out is somehow more frightening than the version of yourself that used to check a balance of $312 and do frantic math about brake pads. The wound that built the whole climb doesn't just switch off because the number crossed a line on a spreadsheet. You tell exactly one person, not because you're hiding it, but because you don't yet have language for what it means, and you're not sure you want to find out what changes the moment you say it out loud to somebody who's still 5 years into their own stage 2. So you sit with it privately for a while, this strange, quiet, unshareable fact about your life, and you keep showing up to a job you no longer technically need, and nobody around you knows anything is different, because from the outside, nothing is.
People around you don't know any of this happened. Your car is the same, your apartment is the same. From the outside, nothing changed. That gap between what's true and what's visible is the exact thing that got you here, and it's also the thing that starts to cost you something you didn't budget for. Because now there's stage 6, abundance. Somewhere past the financial independence number, your net worth crosses a different, more specific threshold. $1 million excluding your primary residence. It's a number written into securities law, not folklore, the line the SEC uses to decide who counts as an accredited investor. Cross it, and a door opens that most people don't know exists. Private funds, real estate syndications, deal flow that never touches a public exchange. You don't get handed a key or a certificate. You just notice one day that conversations you couldn't have 6 months ago are suddenly available to you. And this is where the cost of the whole climb finally shows up in a currency the spreadsheet never had a column for. A friend calls, needing $2,000 for a car repair he didn't see coming. You send it without hesitating, the way you'd hand someone a napkin. For you, it costs nothing measurable. For him, it costs something that has no dollar figure attached to it at all. The next time you see him, he insists on paying for dinner. He makes a joke about owing you. He makes it again. Nothing was said out loud, and yet the entire shape of the friendship shifted the moment the money moved, and neither of you chose that. Your sibling calls about a mortgage refinance, asking what you'd do at the rate they've been offered. You understand rate environments and amortization schedules in a way that took you over a decade to build, and you try to hand over the relevant pieces in a 10-minute phone call. Something gets lost in the translation every time. You can simplify and lose the substance. You can go deeper and lose them entirely. You do your best. They say thanks, that's helpful, and you can hear in their voice that they're exactly as uncertain as they were before you called. This is the part the climb never warned you about. The asymmetry that protected you on the way up, the information nobody else had, the discipline nobody else saw, becomes distant once you're standing somewhere they can't easily follow. You didn't lose the people who knew you before any of this. You just can't fully bring them with you either. Both things are true at once, and no stage resolves that tension. It just becomes part of what stage 6 actually is. Your parents notice something has changed even if they can't name the number. Your mom asks carefully over Sunday dinner whether you're doing okay financially the way she's asked every year since you were 22. You say yes. She doesn't ask a follow-up question because some part of her has learned not to, the same way she learned decades ago which grocery markdowns to trust.
You could tell her the actual number. You don't. Not because you're ashamed of it, because you're not sure what it would do to a Sunday dinner that's worked the same way for 15 years. And some things you protect not out of secrecy, but out of care. Then there's stage 7, and it's the quietest one of all, because it isn't really about you anymore. It's a Tuesday afternoon, years from where you started, and you're doing the math again. Except this time, the math includes people who don't exist yet. A niece, a future kid, someone's kid you haven't even met. You think about the fact that the median American household holds less than $10,000 in liquid savings, and that's the water your family swam in for 3 generations before you. Your dad worked a job that never quite paid what the work was worth. Your mom did math at the kitchen counter the same way you used to do it on your phone at 11:40 on a Sunday. That water is not the water your kids will swim in. Not because you gave them a check, because you replaced the entire floor the family used to stand on. That's legacy. It's not a bigger number, it's a structural fact about what happens to the people who come after you, and it's the only stage that isn't really measured by what's in your own account at all. Here's the part almost nobody tells you on the way up. You don't graduate from the anxiety that built stage 1. You just keep it, in a smaller, stranger form at every stage after it. The version of you checking $312 on a Sunday night and the version of you checking a 7-figure balance on a random Tuesday are running the same program. Same hum under everything, different number on the screen. That's the part the highlight reel never shows, and it's also the part that's actually true for almost everyone who makes this entire climb. You still open the app most nights. Different number, same ritual. And you're starting to understand that financial freedom was never the destination you thought it was going to be. It's just the stage where the question finally changes from, will I survive this, to something a lot harder to answer and a lot harder to Google. Which stage are you actually in? And more importantly, are you sure the number you're chasing is the one that was ever going to answer the question underneath it?